Each and every NFL team always has that player that is primed for a major breakout season. And today we're going to be going through all 32 NFL teams, and I am going to be giving who I ultimately believe is going to break out and be huge impacts for their respective teams. Before we get into it, though, leave a like, subscribe if you are new. Also, be sure to sign up for Underdog Fantasy using my code JWAX to get double your initial deposit. And check out my Patreon, which will be linked down below. For $5 a month, you guys will get exclusive access to prospect interviews, my NFL draft guide, and much, much more. But guys, let's go ahead and get into it. Starting off with the Buffalo Bills, and I think it's going to be Khalil Shakir. Shakir definitely showed some flashes last year for the Bills. I think there's a guy that's got a lot of tools still. He's not the biggest guy, but he can be a slot weapon that can win vertically. They have a lot of those guys on this team. You got Curtis Samuel, but I think Khalil Shakir is a player that complements the receiver room really nicely. He's been with this team for a few years now. He's quick. He knows how to get open. He's got solid hands. I think he's going to be an impact for this team. I think he's going to have a big year, has 750 yards minimum this year, and he is going to step in and be that wide receiver one for this team. Maybe wide receiver two, depending on what you get from Keon Coleman, but there are no rookies on this list. So I got Khalil Shakir being my breakout player for the Bills. For the Miami Dolphins, we got Cam Smith. Now, Cam Smith was one of my favorite prospects in the 2023 NFL draft because he's physical, he's versatile, he can do a lot of different things. Didn't have the greatest rookie season, and then Miami went and signed Kendall Fuller. Cater Coes was good in the slot, but definitely had a down year last season. So I think Cam Smith, if you see a down year or an injury, is going to step in and be an impact player for Miami. A guy who's got good size, he's physical, he can move really well, fell way further than he should have, but he's in a good situation in Miami. You get to learn from Jalen Ramsey. Kendall Fuller's done it for a long time. I have got him as the breakout star for Miami. Miami's a tough one, but I think he's going to have a big year for the Dolphins. For the Patriots, I've got Keion White. Now, Keion White was my guy in the 2023 NFL draft because he could play 3-tech, but he also could play edge, and he did a lot of different things for Georgia Tech. And I'm a big fan of what he is going to bring to this New England defense. This is a defense that runs a very simple type of scheme, and it gets these guys like Keion White on the inside got a lot of good pass rush opportunities. He is a guy with size, speed, strength, everything that you could hope for. And I think he's going to have a really big year. I could see him finishing with 8 or 9 sacks this season. Definitely things started to click for him in the second half of last year, but I think we see a major rise from him this year. I think he's going to be a breakout star for New England. For the Jets, I think it's Jermaine Johnson. You could talk about Will McDonald if they want to use him in that Bryce Huff role, but not only do I think Jermaine Johnson is going to break out in a big way, I think he's going to be in the Defensive Player of the Year race. There were moments last year where he just took over games. He's quick, he's athletic, he's big, he's powerful, he can win on the outside. He is exactly what you look for in a 4-3 edge. He is a dynamic player, and I think he is going to be an awesome piece for the Jets this year. You got Hassan Reddick, but I think he is going to take that spot as the number one edge in New York and just take over games. So I've got Jermaine Johnson as my breakout for the Jets. For the Ravens, I've got Andrew Voorhees. Now, you could argue that he's a rookie, but it's his second year. Didn't play, tore his ACL at the combine and didn't play last year. But this is a guy who had really high buzz coming out of USC, was a guy that I was a huge fan of. I thought he was a second or third round pick. Ends up falling to the 7th because of the injury. Baltimore scooped him up. He is a really smart edge rusher with incredible strength. I still think he did 28 benches on the bench after tearing his ACL. He's athletic. He moves really well. He's going to be a good run blocker for a team that wants to run the football. And a team that lost some help on the interior of their offensive line, I think Voorhees has a good chance of getting significant playing time for them. So he is my breakout star for Baltimore. For Cincinnati, I think it's Chase Brown. I think this is a player that a lot of people have forgotten about. They signed Zach Moss, but Chase Brown really flashed some potential last year, even with Joe Mixon on the roster. I think he's a really good player. I liked him a lot coming out of Illinois. I think he's got good speed. I think he's got good receiving back upside. And him and Zach Moss have similar skill sets, but I think he might get the edge due to health. Zach Moss has had some injury concerns in the past, and I'm a fan of what Chase Brown is going to be able to bring to Cincinnati's run game. This is a team that doesn't run the ball a lot, but I think Chase Brown could be a 800-yard, 6-touchdown rusher this year. So he's my breakout guy for Cincinnati. For the Browns, it's DeJuan Jones. I think he might take over full-time starter at left tackle this year because Jedrick Wills has some inconsistencies, I should say. But DeJuan Jones was really, really good as a rookie. I think he could take that leap to being a Pro Bowl type of tackle. You've got Jack Conklin coming back to play that right tackle spot. The left tackle's open. I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if you see Jedrick Wills start to struggle if they slide DeJuan Jones in at left tackle, because he had some really high upside moments last year against some of the league's best rushers. Big fan of DeJuan Jones. Loved him out of Ohio State. Thought he was going to get selected higher than he should have. And he was a great rookie. So I got DeJuan Jones breaking out for Cleveland. For Pittsburgh, I've got Joey Porter Jr. I don't see how he doesn't have a big season. Got injured for some time last year. When he was on the field, he was dynamic. He's super quick. He's got great size. He moves really, really well. One of those Penn State corners that seem to always come out and produce. On top of that, though, I think he's just a really good athlete, too. He's got that it factor. He loves playing the position, and he definitely flashed some CB1 type upside. And a secondary that I think is horrible outside of him and Minka. I think he is going to have a really big season and maybe propel himself into a top 10 corner in football. So I got Joey Porter Jr. as a breakout. For the Texans, it's Jalen Petrie. Had a bit of a down year, had a good rookie season, bit of a down year too. I think you see a big leap from him here, though, in year 3. This is a team that has tried to figure out their safety room. And they made some moves here and there, but I think Petrie is going to take that jump up and be one of the better safeties in football. So I've got him breaking out for Houston. This is a team that's got a lot of proven players already. Don't really know who else I could see breaking out in a big way. Maybe a guy like I am blanking on his name. The guard that they drafted from A&M a few years ago. Maybe him, but we shall see. For the Colts, I have Jelani Woods. Now, I know everyone's going to be like, Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson is going to break out. That is obvious. He showed flashes as a rookie. If he stays healthy, he is going to break out. Jelani Woods is a player nobody is talking about who was very good as a rookie, missed year 2 completely, a 6'7" tight end who can block. He's a really solid receiver. I really like Jelani Woods. I think he is a player that is flying under the radar. And yes, Anthony Richardson is going to break out. But I wanted to give you guys a name that maybe you're not as familiar with. So Jelani Woods, that's my guy here. I think he's going to have a really big year, along with Anthony Richardson, along with Juju Brents, and along with a lot of really good players on Indy. I think this is going to be the breakout team of the year. In the AFC at least. So I got Jelani Woods breaking out. For the Jags, I've got Devin Lloyd. This was a guy that I absolutely loved. The first linebacker I ever studied, Devin Lloyd, was fantastic. Great tackler, great feel for the position. I think he's going to have a Pro Bowl type of season. He was really good last year as their number 2. He's still the number 2 behind Foye Oluokun, but I think he is going to take a big jump into being a potential number 1 type of backer because he is such a good tackler, very smart, good instincts. And I think that's exactly what Jacksonville wants. And if he breaks out, this defense could have a really big year. For the Titans, I've got Tyjae Spears. Now, he is taking over the running back 1 spot from Derrick Henry. Now, I guess they're going to do a split backfield with him and Tony Pollard. I think Tyjae Spears, though, is the better back. He is a bit smaller, but incredibly quick, incredibly light on his feet. Has elite open field speed. We saw some really high upside moments from him last season. And on top of that, I'll always hold a special place for Tyjae. First interview I ever got to do on this channel was with Tyjae Spears. Very good player. I think he's going to have a big year for Tennessee and be their breakout star. My breakout player for the Broncos is J.L. Skinner, the safety from Boise State who missed some time with injury last year. Didn't really get to see him on the field, but was a lot of people's big sleeper in that draft class. and a really solid safety prospect. For a Broncos secondary that is still pretty unproven outside of Pat Surtain, I think Skinner is going to be a big piece for this team, especially considering they just cut Caden Stearns and Justin Simmons is gone. I think you're going to see a big rise from JL Skinner, and he is going to be a starting safety for this team by the end of the year, and we're going to get to see some really high upside play from him. So he's my breakout for Denver. For the Chiefs, I got Joshua Williams. It's got to be one of these secondary options, and he was the guy that I thought impressed the most at times last year. It was more of a rotational corner for them, but when you look at this team and you look at what they got, you lost L'Jarius Sneed. You don't trade L'Jarius Sneed unless you know you're getting a big year from Joshua Williams or one of these type of players, and I think that's what they're going to get. So I got Joshua Williams having a really big season for Kansas City, stepping into that cornerback 2 spot and being a really solid piece for them. Because if he's not, this team is going to struggle to get back to the Super Bowl. In Vegas, I've got Tyree Wilson. It has to be Tyree Wilson. He was not great as a rookie. I understand it, but his upside is tremendous. He's an elite athlete with great length, great power, and can rush the passer. He is probably going to be playing some of that 3-tech spot. You got Max Crosby, you got Christian Wilkins. It should take some of the defensive or offensive line of blocking assignments away from him. I think he's going to eat. I think Tyree Wilson's in for a massive year in Vegas, and I think he's going to be awesome. For the Chargers, Joshua Palmer, I wanted to put Quentin Johnston, and then the guy just still can't catch. And that's unfortunate for a receiver that I loved coming out of TCU. Joshua Palmer is a receiver that I really liked too. Got injured last year. 2 years ago, I thought he was really solid. And as a number 3, now he's probably a number 1 or a number 2 weapon here. He's got some really good speed. He's going to be a great deep ball threat for Justin Herbert. And you got Ladd McConkey, who's kind of that middle of the field threat. You've got Quentin Johnston, who I still think there's a role for him in this league as more of a gadget player. And then you've got Joshua Palmer, who can stretch the ball down the field. I think he's got a 1,000-yard season coming this year. I think he's going to be awesome. And I've got him going to be the breakout star and a potential Pro Bowler for LA. For the Cowboys, it's Deuce Vaughn. Zeke is not the same player he used to be. So I think you got to have some stability in that running back room. Deuce Vaughn was an incredibly quick athlete from Kansas State who really fell because of his size. If he's 5'9", he probably gets drafted in the first 2 or 3 rounds. He's 5'5", so that's going to be a concern. A really good athlete, though. I think they're going to find ways to get him the ball and utilize him because he's got upside without question. He's a really good player, was not used much last year, but I think he's going to have a role in this Cowboys team this year. For the Giants, I've got Deonte Banks. He has to break out for this team or else this secondary is going to be the worst in football. I like Tyler Nubin. I like some of the moves they made this offseason, but Tay Banks was one of my favorite corners coming out of Maryland. His size, his physicality, his speed were all there. They checked all the boxes that I looked for. And I was pretty impressed. He had some good moments for him last year. Nothing consistent. I think this year we are going to see some really consistent play from him. And he is going to be a really good corner. I think he's their breakout star. I think he's going to be great. For the Eagles, it's Isaiah Rodgers. As a Colts fan, I wish we wouldn't have cut him because he would be the best corner on our roster right now. Isaiah Rodgers is going to be the number 1 or number 2 on this team this year. You've got the incredible luxury of drafting 2 of the top corners in this class in DeJean and Mitchell. And you really don't have to play either of them this year because I think Rodgers and Slay can hold it down. Rodgers was out all last year with a suspension for gambling, but when he's on the field, he is a very good corner who makes some good plays happen on the football. So I think he's going to be a really good player for Philly, and I think he's going to help take the secondary back to where they used to be. In Washington, Jamin Davis. You've got Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu now in that linebacker room with you. I think he is going to be the guy, though, who is going to be the guy that benefits from that. He is not going to be asked to be the number 1 guy anymore, and that's going to be good for him. He's still a good tackler. He's still got upside in coverage, which is where I think you're going to see him thrive because Bobby Wagner can't do that anymore. He's a good tackler, and in a Dan Quinn's scheme, I think he is going to have an awesome season for Washington. He is my breakout stud for the Commanders. For the Bears, it's Gervon Dexter. He also has to break out for this team, or else this defensive line's horrible. He has got some freakish size and athleticism. Slow first step is the concern with him, but I still think he has some elite upside at that defensive tackle position. He can rush the passer. He shows pass rush moves. He can run, defend pretty well. There's a lot to like from him, and I think he is going to be a player that is going to leapfrog some of these guys on the top 100 list potentially if he has the year that I think he's capable of having. Matt Eberflus loves these defensive linemen that can rush the passer. He loved them in Indy. I think he's going to get a really good one here in Gervon Dexter. For Detroit, it's JMO. It has to be a guy that they drafted in the first round at 22, didn't play for the first half of his rookie season, has been in and out of the lineup. However, the upside is still there. You still see those high-end flashes. You're like, he could be a number one receiver on this team. He's got speed. He's got hands. He can run routes. Can he put it all together this year? That's kind of the question. And if he can do that, the Lions are probably going to be a Super Bowl team. If he can't, you're probably going to draft a receiver next year. So it's kind of a win-win for Detroit, but I think Jameson Williams will have a big year, will answer the call, and break out for Detroit. In Green Bay, I've got Dontavian Wicks. Not only do I think he's going to break out, I think he's going to be their number one receiver by the end of the year. A lot of people compared him to like a Devontae Adams type of guy in terms of the way he runs his routes, creates separation. He's a very good, smart football player with good hands who understands leverage. That's what you want. This team needs to figure out this receiving room. You got Romeo Doubs. You've got Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed. I think Wicks is going to be that number one guy on this team, and I think he is going to have a massive year for Jordan Love in Green Bay. For the Vikings, I've got Sam Darnold. I believe in Darnold still. He has shown flashes in Carolina where you're like, okay, maybe there is still something there. The problem with him is he just hasn't had any good coaching, hasn't had any good weapons, hasn't had any good O-line. He's got all of that here in Minnesota. It depends on how this season starts, because if the Vikings start slow, they're benching him. JJ's getting in. But if he starts fast, I think Darnold's going to have a big year for Minnesota. So it's kind of a sneaky one. Could go either way, but I think Darnold's going to have a good year for Minnesota. For the Falcons, I've got Arnold Ebiketie. This one's tough because I really don't know who else to pick here, because Ebiketie's a good player. You need to see upside, but I don't know if he's got the upside to be a number one pass rusher. He's got good speed, good run defender. I take it back, actually. Horrible run defender. I don't know why I said that. There's some stuff here that you like about Ebiketie, his athleticism, his ability to rush the passer, but hasn't pieced everything together. You're hoping this year with a new defensive coordinator, he's going to be able to piece it all together. That's going to be the question around him right now. But I've got him breaking out for Atlanta, at least a little bit. This team's pretty hard to predict. In Carolina, it's Bryce Young. I do think Bryce Young is the breakout guy in Carolina. They improved the interior of the offensive line, and they got weapons. The two areas that this team desperately needed to improve, they did. So I think Bryce Young, on that regard, is going to have a big year. He's going to show the world why he's the number one pick. He might not be better than Anthony Richardson or CJ Stroud, but I still think he's going to prove to be a franchise quarterback. I think Carolina is going to be good this year, sneakily, and I think Bryce Young is going to be a part of that. For the Bucks, for the Saints, it's A.T. Perry. Love the A.T. Perry coming out of Wake Forest. He's got a very unique skill set for this wide receiver room. He is their deep ball threat. He has got some speed to win downfield. He's got good ball tracking abilities and really good hands. Big fan of what A.T. Perry showed at the end of last year. I think he's going to be a great red zone threat for Derek Carr. I'm a big fan of him, so he's my breakout guy for the Saints. And my favorite breakout candidate here, it's Zion McCollum out of Tampa Bay. Now, he came from Sam Houston, was drafted pretty late from a small school. You get that. But this is a guy that has shown he's an elite athlete, and he has shown some potential to be an elite corner at the NFL level. Now, with Carlton Davis out the door, Zion McCollum has to step up here. And I think he's going to be able to do it. He is a really good size, really good speed type guy. And as a number 2 corner, I think you're going to see a big year from Zion McCollum. And he is I honestly almost put him on the thumbnail. I think he's going to be one of the biggest breakout stars of the entire season. For the Cardinals, Garrett Williams. I'm going to pound the table for this guy. 3rd round pick out of Syracuse, fell because of an injury. Could have been a 1st round corner in that year's draft class. He is fantastic. He's fluid, moves well. I think for a Cardinals team that is their secondary was so depleted last year. Now you got Max Melton, Elijah Jones, Garrett Williams. With that safety duo, I think Garrett Williams is going to prove to be a number 1 corner at the NFL level. I'm a big fan of him, and I've got him going to be the breakout star here. For the Rams, it's Kobe Turner. Not only do I think he breaks out, I think he could be an all-pro this year. He was that good as a rookie in terms of, yes, he played off of Aaron Donald, but he still did some things that you're like, oh my gosh, this is a rookie. He understands how to use his hands. He's got a good bull rush. He's got finesse, can run, defend, and rush the passer. Kobe Turner is probably the reason why Aaron Donald thought he was going to be able to retire when he did. He left this in good hands, and him and Braden Fisk and Jared Verse and Dearness Jones, this defense is going to be a lot of fun to watch this year, and I think he's going to be awesome. For the 49ers, it is Jair Brown, a safety out of Penn State, played a little bit last year because of Talanoa Hufanga's injury. I think he gets a established role in this team and really performs. It was a safety that I liked coming out of Penn State, and I think he's in a really good spot to have a big season for the Niners. So he's my breakout there. And then lastly, it is Noah Fant in Seattle. Noah Fant is a player that has kind of been the number 2 or the number 3 for the Seattle team for the last few years. Parkinson and Disley out the door. He's the number 1 weapon and an offense that I think is going to get him the ball. He's super athletic. He's got hands, and he is the prototypical receiving tight end. I think he could take a big leap and prove to be that 1st-round pick that everyone saw at Iowa. But, guys, let me know who do you guys think are going to break out for your favorite team. Leave a like, subscribe if you are new. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.